Hey everyone, here we are. Another episode of Applesauce and Bologna here to talk some more She-Hulk and some more Andor. Eric's again still off site. We're dealing with some internet issues, so he's gonna look a little choppy. But you're not
Yes, in
watching
my
us
my
anyway.
embedded, undisclosed location, um, deep in the hills of Skywalker Ranch. I
Right, right,
wish.
right. So I mean,
Um,
let's just bag right into it. Here we go.
Here we are. We're episode 4. We're waiting for episode 5 as we shoot this. That'll be this week. Um, we got to know a lot about the Stellan Skarsgård's character. The I don't know what his name is. He's got a name. I don't think he gave his name to. I don't think he did. Does he have a name in the show yet?
I know he does. I'm absolutely awful. I talked about this the last show we were on that I didn't remember anyone's names. I still don't remember anyone's names, but he's obviously a character with many names.
Yes, yeah,
As
and
he
so we got to see his other life. Where I love his ship.
Oh,
So
very
yeah,
Millennium
let's start with
Falcon-esque. Yeah, I
that
love
character. I
that.
think
Yeah.
there yeah, let's look at this guy. We were back on Coruscant for the first time, I think, since episode 3. We're seeing action on Coruscant.
Right, because we didn't get there in Kenobi. Yeah, so it could be, yeah. Other than maybe the Clone
Right, and I
Wars, but
believe, yeah, and so he's obviously he's a deep fulcrum-esque cell of the Rebel Alliance, like pre-Rebel Alliance rebels, and so we got introduced to a new character too in the ISB, another deep cut from the novels and Star Wars canon that we're now getting into. Is this ISB officer who is tracking down her box
yeah.
and sort of the internal squabbling at that table, and we can kind of see we're setting up a collision course between her and Stellan Skarsgård's many characters. His active recruiter for the rebellion, his art dealer who introduced us to a name we can remember, Mon Mothma.
Right.
So you got your wish.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely getting the sprinkles of Star Wars at large in this show. One of the things I wanted to talk about was his collection, his art dealing collection that he's getting rid of, and all the things that are in it because the internet is absolutely going crazy about all the little Easter eggs of Star Wars that are in
Well,
his
I mean, some
collection.
of it's from Solo, right? I mean, so we saw some of those art pieces in Solo, didn't we?
Well, I mean, some of them were reminiscent of what we saw on the barge in Solo, but I mean, it goes so far as like the armor that's in the background. We see Mandalorian armor, but we also see the armor from Starkiller from the Force Unleashed video games. There's the wall murals from the world between worlds from the Clone Wars. Again, we're very old Star Wars, very Filoni heavy little bits and trinkets in there. There's even people going so far as saying that there's a carbonite frozen Indiana Jones whip in the background, which is kind of funny when you look at. But for me,
Well, there's that would track with Solo, the Star Wars story, where there was the Crystal Skull, I believe, from Crystal Skull was on the pleasure barge what was Paul Bettany's character's name
oh
in that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
But his art collection,
yeah,
yeah,
well, and even so back as far to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's hieroglyphics of R2D2 and C3PO down in the
yep.
chamber. So it's all interconnected.
So I mean,
It's not
all the
necessarily
way, yeah,
connected, but it's
exactly, all the way from those deep cut Easter eggs to, I mean, again, really, I mean, what I love about this show is if you're not a super Star Wars nerd like we are, you can. I think it's one of the better Star Wars shows as far as just telling a really cool, interesting story in the Star Wars universe. But oh man, are there so many layers? If you're a Star Wars fan, I mean, they mentioned the Rakata. We're the ISB, corporate security.
yeah,
We're really getting into some deep cut Star Wars stuff here.
yeah, yeah. Well, and while we're talking Easter eggs, and that might just be this entire episode is talking Easter eggs of this show. My favorite one that they brought up, and which is why I'm wearing my Solo shirt today, is they mentioned that Andor was on Mimbin with the Empire when he was working with the Empire. Well, who else during that time period happened to be on Mimbin? Was Han Solo from the Solo show, from the Solo movie. So we now have a credible crossover of Han Solo having met possibly Cassian Andor. Probably not, because the Empire is a big thing and they're all blowing up Mimbin. But it's just those tie-ins are what keep, at least for me as a big Star Wars fan, keeps me really interested in this show. But like to your point, there's a lot of people that I think aren't as deep into Star Wars as a lot of the big fans that get angry about things on the internet. That's going to allow the show to be something more than just a Star Wars show, because it doesn't have lightsabers. It's not referencing the Star Wars at large. There's no mention of Jedi or Darth Vader. It's just this internal struggle between people trying to build this rebellion, and it's telling a really interesting story. I'm curious to see where it's going. It's going really slow, but they have like 12 episodes to tell it in, so I think they have time.
Yeah, 12 episodes, or as I'm I'm starting to think of it, 3 movies.
Yeah.
If we're 3 or 4 movies we're going to get out of this, if you look at them in episode blocks, and I think as we transition, from talking to Andor about She-Hulk, it really seems like, and we got the news that Armor Wars has got upgraded from series to movie. So I think that's kind of speaks to a lot of the issues with some of the Disney Plus programming that the critics on the internet like to get on them, that they're just telling these movies that are chopped up. I think just do a movie. Shoot, I would take the second season of Obi-Wan as a Star Wars movie. Yeah. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Book of Boba Fett, definitely way better when you a lot of the issues where it seems kind of slow and stilted.
When you go back and rewatch 2 hour,
you go back and rewatch Book of Boba Fett as just watch the episodes in a row. It really, ties together and works a lot better as a single entity than where The Mandalorian does really well, breaking its story up. I think some of these other, including WandaVision was a little off. Falcon Winter Soldier definitely felt like it should have been a movie. But, to pop over to She-Hulk for a second, unless there's anything else about Andor, other than can't wait to see what's going on. We're definitely seeing the rebellion in a tight spot in its inception. And there's just so many places. I'm so excited about Andor's story, Stellan Skarsgård's story. We're going to get to see some actual politics on the ground with Mon Mothma. I got to believe we're going to see Bail Organa and maybe even an older Princess Leia. I don't know.
Right.
But, it's all on the table. We could see, Princess Leia. We could see, Darth Maul, for God's sake.
Yeah.
There's so many places Andor can go, but I love where it's at. And
how cool would it be to see Kira make a cameo in somewhere? Granted, she's still not in charge of.
Right.
Timelines are hard, because it'd be cool to see her in the show, but as I say that, technically she'd still be working with, or just about to work with, Solo at this point. So I don't know if that timeline would work out so well, but that's the cool thing about where we are, is that plumbing the depths of this time period, which is so rich with story, is really fun. Like, yes, I want to know what happens after. I want to know what happens after the sequels, and I'm curious about what happened in the High Republic and stuff.
You know what you just made me think of, though? We might not see Kira, but who would absolutely be a great character to bring in to help Andor out would be Empress Ness. She's obviously she's obviously one of these cells that's working. And we could even see a thing where she's going off to steal this, coaxium shipment, and needs Andor's help with a part of it that could tie directly. Because Solo and Andor, where it's at right now in its timeline, should be happening fairly concurrently.
Yeah, really, really, really close to. But how funny would that be to find out that Andor was working with Empress Nest on the opposite side of what Solo was doing? That
Right.
it doesn't have to tie in that close, but like, it's a role playing book thing. It's like it'd be cool if it ties that close.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it could, and it should, because it would tie Solo into the whole. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what Solo's journey and Solo's Star Wars story is. His journey is, going from sort of the scum and villainy,
yeah,
section of the galaxy to being
yeah.
sort of rebel
Yeah,
friendly. He's not a rebel yet.
how he ends up working with
Yeah.
the rebellion, becoming a resistance member. Yeah. Um, I mean, uh, they can go so many different places. I'm intrigued by all the
Yeah.
little story threads they have. Just for me, it's still a little pacing funny because they have so many story threads. But once those all tie together,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gonna blow my socks off. But I don't want to dwell on that because we wanted to talk about She-Hulk because these shows are happening concurrently. Disney,
Yes.
why are
Yes.
you doing
Well,
this to us?
I have one
Um,
more thought. I have one more thought.
yeah,
Andor, and that's all right. So let's a little bit of baloney right before we switch to She-Hulk is, do you think that our ISB agent, the woman ISB agent, is she a deep plant?
I was wondering that. I don't know. I definitely think
I
that I think that'd be cool,
Yeah.
but I also worry that that's too close to the character that we just saw in Obi-Wan.
Right,
Now,
right. But we also know from history, if the Empire basically space Nazis, we do know that there were a lot of
yeah,
a lot of people working with trying to bring down that regime. And I can see, yes, it's a lot like that one character, but we could dive even deeper into her. Or I don't know, again, there's so many things.
yeah.
It's a lot, they're playing a long game. We don't know where anybody's loyalties really lie right now. um
I mean,
and that's
Stellan Skarsgård could still turn around and send us for a loop. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
he's
you
going
just don't
to. I
know.
think he's going to be a cool rebellion hero. But I mean, Mon Mothma's husband at this point is really sus. So I guess we'll see where everything goes. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely got that vibe too. He does not know what's going on. Like
Oh,
she's
well, either
which
either
which
he
which is
doesn't
an
know what's going
interesting.
on, or he does know what's going on, and he's playing his
Right.
angle to yeah,
But again, it's a really good. There's a lot of storytelling that's kind of very keeping up with the current events, and Mon Mothma being trapped in sort of a loveless marriage of convenience, is very much stuff that just sort of as a culture we're working on right now.
yeah, yeah.
um, and sort of where she's considered a sort of a second class citizen, even in her position of
Even though
power.
she's a senator, yeah.
Yeah. So very interesting there. Talking about playing the long game, what is up with Emil Blonsky? Okay, transitioning to She-Hulk.
I'm
Is he?
actually
Is he? I mean, I can't tell. With the tone of She-Hulk, I can't tell. I keep waiting. This last episode with She-Hulk in therapy, I kept waiting for that to be the turn where we were going to find out he was a bad guy. And of course, the one guy from the Wrecking Crew who was a bad guy and part of that thing is in the group.
yeah.
But they're playing it so close to the chest. What is going on with Abomination?
I'm hearing a lot of people complaining that they've made him another Mandarin character where he was this great, villain that they've now, basically castrated down for comedic humor. I'm okay with it. I absolutely
Me too.
love what's going on with Emil Blonsky. I think it's hilarious. I think tonally for the show it works. We
Mm-hmm.
don't if we're ultimately going for a Thunderbolts that's going to ultimately have a red Hulk. The Abomination isn't necessarily a puzzle piece that needs to be there. So I think it's
Right.
fine with what they're doing, and it's hilarious. And like I said, for the tone of the show, it fits because this show is fun. It's light. It's funny. It works for me. I enjoyed this last episode where it was just group therapy of trying to figure out like you and I have talked about the whole superhero thing being a big trauma dump. Like it's these people working through their problems, which is kind of the whole show of She-Hulk is her working through all of her personal problems that now existed before She-Hulk, but now exist now that she has the She-Hulk power. So it's really, really interesting to see how they're doing these personal interactions. Um,
No, no, I totally agree. I love how this show is constantly defining itself. And this last episode very much defined, for the people that don't like it, I get it. It's not your cup of tea. I'm enjoying, kind of like we were talking about with Andor. I'm enjoying this new way to tell stories in the MCU that can be compelling and different and not like everything else we've seen.
yeah,
Um, and it defining itself in being an entire isolated episode, kind of like the wedding, which she even calls herself out on. That's just an isolated pretty much a wedding episode, and we leave the law stuff with Mr. Immortal to the side characters. This one, we're basically trapped at this retreat, which is hilarious.
yeah,
And the story stuff that we're looking for is really, I think it's really smart that they just tag at the end. They've
yeah,
done it a couple times in the show now where she gets attacked by that wrecking crew and we see that there's people after her blood. And now we see, they do the 3 days earlier and we see this guy who works his way into and is using Jen's insecurities against her.
yeah,
That's her weakness.
yeah,
Is you can't hurt Jen, you can't hurt She-Hulk, but you can get at Jen Walters and her insecurities, and
yeah,
he takes advantage of that and gets her blood, copies her phone, and I think that they're setting this up for this week. See, she's been out of signal for 3 days. And then we end with
oh,
knowing he's got her cell phone, not just her blood, but he's got her cell phone data cloned. So when she gets back with the tow truck back into cell service, I'm expecting because this next episode is the last episode, right?
it's from my understanding, unless they pull a fast one on us, this is the last
Yeah.
episode.
So we know some things about this last episode that's going to come out this week here after we film this, and that's it's probably going to have Daredevil in it,
Yep.
and it's probably mostly going to focus on the story that She-Hulk that we expected, but that we haven't really gotten. And I think that's why a lot of people are complaining about it, other than just the toxic fan bro stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, everyone
I think it's
everyone
thrown a lot
wanted
of people.
everyone wanted a Marvel movie. They wanted action.
Yeah,
They wanted Hulk, and we got something that, because She-Hulk is not Hulk, and She-Hulk is something different, and they're doing that in this show, and I think it's fine. It's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, and it's setting up a world in which now we also know we got to talk about this. It's setting up a world in which Deadpool is going to exist in the MCU, who
yeah,
definitely has a different tone than the other Marvel movies, and I think She-Hulk is a great rainbow bridge between those two dimensions.
yeah.
Like we got the blew up the internet this last week since we recorded last, that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are going to be back in Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
It's happening. This is
So
happening. The mutants are here.
I want to agree with you. I really do, because I got super excited when that trailer dropped, or teaser dropped from Ryan Reynolds doing his little thing around the Logan house. Because if you look, that's the house from Logan. It's the same staircase that he fights his clone in Logan. But the interesting thing that I was alerted to yesterday is the fact that Marvel and Disney have not made any sort of reshares or comments or mention about the Ryan Reynolds mention. So is Ryan Reynolds doing a Ryan Reynolds where he's releasing this idea into the air, kind of like he did with the original non-leaking of the Deadpool footage, to kind of force Marvel's hand? I don't know if I
I
agree with
think
that.
I
I think it's something that's actually happening.
Yeah, I think it's happening. I think that they're so spread thin, that Ryan Reynolds has such ownership of Deadpool, and
Yeah,
I think that there's so many other things in the works that I really think they're just like, look, we don't have to do any work. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are
yeah.
going to do the work.
Well,
I
and
mean, if there's any property that they know over the next several years that they know is going to be gangbusters,
yeah,
it's Deadpool 3.
yeah. Well,
So I think they're just letting him do it.
and I think it's if it is a planned stunt, I think it's brilliant, because Ryan Reynolds is a marketing stunt. He just
Yep.
is. And I think the fact that everyone's like, well, they didn't talk about it at Comic Con and they didn't talk about it at D23. It's like you don't have to, because Ryan
Yep.
Reynolds broke the internet by making a funny video about him
Yep.
asking Hugh Jackman to be.
It would have gotten lost. Yeah. For anybody wondering, oh, it's not official or blah blah blah. Why didn't they release it during D23? Why would you risk this kind of news over either overshadowing all the other
Yeah,
stuff you were doing at D23 or getting lost in the noise? Like, no, let everybody be excited about D23. We're already excited about a lot of stuff that's coming out, and then let everything calm down for a week, and then drop this kind of bomb. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, no, it's brilliant.
yeah,
It's definitely happening. I can feel it in my guts. Ryan Reynolds has been working this for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time that he's been a champion of Deadpool, and it's going to happen. I
yeah,
mean, we're gonna get a Wolverine in between the X-Men Wolverines and Logan. That's going to come in, I believe, hand the torch off to whoever the new Wolverine is going to be, and Deadpool is the perfect way to do it. And can I kind of come back to She-Hulk, that breaking the fourth wall, that being very meta
yeah,
about it, and leaning into this multiverse, and that we can have these different versions of characters. Because I mean, Deadpool is going to be Deadpool, but the way it's working is he's going to be a slightly different Deadpool, and Wolverine's going to be a slightly different Wolverine now that they're in the MCU.
right.
I mean, we're just not that you and I can wish all day long, but I will be very surprised if the new Deadpool movie, now being under Disney's umbrella, is as is as edgy as he's been able to be. I think
Yeah.
he'll do the best he can, but I think we're going to get closer to the Ferris Bueller re-release of Deadpool. Um, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
yeah. He's going to be allowed. He's going to be allowed a couple f bombs, not all the f bombs. Yeah,
exactly. He's going to get a couple f bombs. There's still going to be gratuitous violence, but not as much gratuitous violence.
yeah,
Not as much blood. But I still think Ryan Reynolds' humor will come through. I'm excited to see Hugh Jackman play the
yeah,
character one more time. I'll take it as many times as he wants to suit up. I'll take it. And kind of excited to see this. This is obviously going to be where we start finding out about the X-Men. I can't imagine
yeah.
that we're going to
I
get to
think so.
Deadpool 3 without knowing about the X-Men if we don't find out about them there.
Right, and because I think the way timing wise it lays out, I think if everything stays on track, Deadpool 3 comes out a couple of months before the Fantastic Four movie. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that whole whirlwind of whatever's going to happen leading up to the Kang Dynasty and after Quantumania, um, I mean, we definitely have to have the mutants by the time we get Fantastic Four, or at least by the end of Fantastic Four, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think that they're set up perfectly. I mean, sort of you and I've talked about this before. We've got the Eternals and that activating people. We've got Miss Marvel, who was an Inhuman and now is a mutant, and directly gets the X-Men 97 theme
yeah,
played during her thing. I mean, the mutants are coming. I think they're already here. And it's actually a better way to introduce. I think it's a great way to introduce the mutants because, as you and I've spoken about the mutants before in the comic books, and even in the X-Men cartoon series, they're very under the radar.
yeah,
Like I think and that's something that they missed in all the old X-Men movies, except maybe the first one, is they've always sort of like, oh yeah, nobody's supposed to know about them, but everybody knows
yeah,
about them.
yeah. They were supposed to be like the
Now we
teenage.
have a real
They were
yeah,
supposed
we
to be
have a
like the
real
Teenage Mutant
Professor
Ninja
X and
Turtles. Yeah,
Xavier's Institute for Gifted Kids that could have existed now for a good 10 years in MCU canon, under the radar.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Which I think would be great. Is just like when they do it, showing us all these little moments where they were doing stuff while the other Marvel stuff was happening. Because just like in the comic books, the X Men don't always go and do the same thing the Avengers do. So they're it's concentric circles of heroism. So I
well,
think
right. The X-Men stories have always centered around not just going out and being heroes in the world, but just trying to survive.
yeah,
And that's another great bridge that She-Hulk is doing, is showing us that there's superheroes out there now, that we've got a conquistador and a man bull, and we've got
yeah,
Mr. Immortal.
yeah,
Is that we're going to have, we're having superhuman law. We've got damage control running around trying to round up superpowered individuals like Miss Marvel, like Kamala Khan. We've got, there's just a lot going on to set up a world in which mutants have to hide.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to get rounded up. And that's always been the crux of a good X-Men story is, the Avengers are out trying to save the world. The X-Men are just trying to save themselves, and they're fighting amongst themselves with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants to sort of, okay, are we going to try to live in society or take over the society that's, not treating us like first-class citizens? And again, great storytelling options for what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah. So kind of segueing into the last thing I want to talk about is kind of what you just talked about is struggling to keep care of your own insular universe and to keep people from taking over in both aspects. The Wakanda Forever trailer, second trailer just dropped this morning. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I haven't.
We get a new, better look at the new Black Panther. We get some awesome interaction between Namor and Queen Ramonda. Some more cool battle stuff.
Who Namor? It must be said, Namor is the I think official first mutant of oldest mutant in the comic books. Like, he is old school mutant.
Yeah, Marvel canon in the comic books, Namor was the first mutant that appeared. Not necessarily the first mutant, because I think canonically in the comic books the first mutant was Apocalypse. That might have even changed now at this point because comics. But yeah, first appearing mutant in Marvel Comics was Namor. I like the direction they're going with this. I like the Aztec and South American feel they're giving them instead of just saying, well, they're Atlanteans. So I'm excited for this. I'm gonna go watch the trailer again on the TV because I watched it on my phone. Definitely go check it out. Tickets apparently are on sale as of this morning. So get out there, figure out where you're seeing it because it's the next thing.
Put the link down in the comments. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, please. We're not going to stop doing it, so you might as well get on board.
Yeah, might as well tell us what you want to hear about because we're going to keep talking. Sorry.
And we've got a lot to talk about next couple weeks because I know you're heading to Disneyland for Halloween.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully get a Hocus Pocus Halloween episode out because lots to talk about in that little world that Disney's kind of growing up. Willow's around the corner.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, so much. We're living in such a golden age of nerd media. It's fun.
Love it.
So
I'm here.
I mean, on that note, keep watching. Come back, and until next time, we'll see you later.